Philosophers talk to our times, towards common notions, in lieu of a conclusion. So, I'm going to finish common notions with this post. I haven't finished with Spinoza. We need to go through the gateway and do the third type of knowledge, which will be another fortnight later on in the year. And I also want to go back to two more issues. I want to go back to the issue of the middles, and lay my ghosts with Deleuze's account of the same territory as I've been covering, and the difference between him, Spinoza, and Hume. And that will be certainly a fortnight later on in the year. And then I also think I owe it to you to go back to book 2 and go through how the argument all comes out of book 2, which I've kind of dealt with a bit, but I want to go back to. But just to finish up with, I want to talk about what I think common notions are an attempt of, or at least how I want to use them. And it was really Whitehead that taught me how philosophy survives Einstein. You see, Einstein presents this huge existential challenge to philosophy. Oh, I mean it. Up until, the beginning of the 20th century, philosophy had always assumed it was safe. It was the master of talking about time, the inner sense, duration, that which could not be compressed or understood or analysed, the deep inner mystery, as mysterious as Geist in its way, but somehow there, practical. And then Einstein comes along and solves the problems of time and pulls it away from philosophy. And philosophy feels itself as bereft, as religion did when it lost the right over the creation story. And what did it do? Did it become, as religion became, a small, quiet department, slightly resentful, with more money than power? Or did it try and reinvent itself? Did it try to reinvent itself as the perfect algebra, Whitehead's first book, the Principia Mathematica, that clarified exactly why science worked, and sort of became its philosophical fanboy club? Totally ignored, totally unnecessary, but hey there. Or did it do the Wittgenstein approach and doubt the truth of words? And try to unpick the very meaning of meaning and find the truth that lay below the untruth of truth? And all the other formulas that you can have when you try to persuade weak-minded ninnies that they can undo knowledge. Think it differently. Well, it's all opinion anyway. And thereby free yourself up to find whatever truth you want to, in whichever place you want to find it. It's a reasonable stratagem. Oh, it's intellectually dishonest. But when does that ever stop philosophy? Or you can do the Whitehead approach. And for me, the Whitehead approach is the most difficult and the most honest. And I always think it's weird about Whitehead. Now, it's a long time since I've read an awful lot of secondary sources. But my impression with Whitehead was he was like a hydrogen bomb in the dark. He had gone off. He'd had this wonderful account of knowledge, an account of knowledge that actually changed everything, but that nobody could do anything with it. It was off to the sidelines. I spent most of my philosophical career at university not really ever coming across Whitehead. I came across him right at the end of my philosophical career, and it meant I carried on for another 4 or 5 years, and actually did all my original thinking. Why? Because Whitehead taught me something in Process and Reality, some deep truth about what philosophy's task actually is, which is to give different ways to understand the seemingly obvious world. Not to say that knowledge is wrong, but to give it an axis where it is absolutely correct. But also other things are sayable. Other things are upable. Whitehead's account of a world of actual occasions. The world of a space devoid of time. Where the things that create the universe are like small particles that light up for a moment and are lost. Is a beautiful kind of philosophical response to the notion of quantum mechanics. And to the, oh God, I've forgotten it, the Planck particle, the Planck minimum. The fact that there is a minimum moment of time, a minimum packet of energy, way below anything that humans can perceive, so not a moment, but just a minimum thing. And it is a beautiful response to that. It allows philosophy to keep its edge and to understand the world different. And then, as in the context of that, Whitehead reforms how you understand the mind and what the mind is doing within the world. Now, as I say, for me, that although it is wonderful, I don't know that I ever think with Whitehead, because it is sealed off in its own little box, its own little canon of philosophers, its own little love affair with Locke that I'm afraid I just don't share. But it gives another way to think philosophy, a way that was clearly vital for Deleuze, out of interest. I once heard a paper that was terribly convincingly argued that the difference in repetition, so that's Deleuze's PhD thesis, one of the great works of late 20th century philosophy, a remarkably difficult book, but important. That Whitehead, as Deleuze wrote it, he actually is reading Whitehead and responding to an argument in Whitehead. You see, Whitehead at one point praises Bergson and says Bergson is an attempt to make the same kind of argument that he is making, but within time. And Whitehead wants to make it within space. And actually, Whitehead is much better than Bergson, goes much further. But Deleuze is trying to give Bergson, or create, the philosophy, the temporal philosophy that Whitehead was calling for. And that is also very true in the Fold book. But Deleuze doesn't. Now, here I'm going to stand corrected, because he might well do a seminar or 5 on Whitehead. I think he might. But he certainly doesn't write a book on him, because he's using him to privately think with. And he's using this idea that it is the role of philosophy neither to reject reality or to just simply clarify what science has told it and be a good little fanboy club, but to open up the mind to other ways within the world as we understand it at the moment. You could understand what it is to be a human being. Other ways, then, you can dream your individuality and pull it in one direction or another. Other ways to understand consciousness than just being a thing. Here, one is clearly very much in the writings of Nietzsche and the ability to breed the overman, that which is other than straightforwardly human. And all the postmodern boys and girls, I mean Derrida, Foucault, Deleuze, Lyotard, they're all at the same game. They're not playing although they can sometimes be understood it rather foolishly, the Lyotard game of dishing reality. Oh no, what they all do in their own rhythm, in their own very different ways, is to give you a different account for the same reality in which you live. A different order, a different set of things that you can prioritize, a different set of things that you might call actual. That just simply gives you a freedom that eases you up. And for me, common notions are a supreme example of that. What they allow the consciousness to do, consciousness particularly, the idea of an idea for Spinoza, to do is to exist at attention to the world, intention with the world it perceives. Now let me explain what I mean. Common notions then allow you to move beyond the world of simple perception and create affinities between things that, as you perceive them, are not directly linked. As forces are not directly perceivable, but create an affinity between a whole variety of different things. It allows then consciousness to enter into a meta world, a world beyond the world of immediate perception that can then be explored, understood, comprehended, that can reform how it understands what the world is and how and why the world works the way that it does. And I have put the emphasis there on consciousness because you must always remember when you are studying common notions that they stand at the gateway to the third type of knowledge. And the third type of knowledge relates to the mind alone and is independent of the body. But Spinoza explicitly says that when he's introducing the idea. I think he says to the existence of the mind beyond the body. There is a nuance there which I haven't quite got on that remark. So when you read it, don't write in and say, you missed the nuance. I know I haven't, but that's because I haven't prepared the third type of knowledge. But my point is not that. My point is that you have to understand how consciousness allows you to reform what it is to have a body so that it no longer becomes your particular body defined by your particular essence. But you can become conscious then along different physical lines that connect you to the world afresh, differently, that catch you in a middle that is not the middle of particular things, not the middle of individual here and now, barely the middle of an individual at all, only one individual. So a thought that you cannot easily have as a simple single self, a here and a now. In the same way, let's be honest, let's give him some praise. I was being rude to him earlier. Wittgenstein is right, surely, to say that you cannot have a private language. A private language is nothing. So a common notion only exists in the sharing, in the being beyond yourself, and never restricted to what you were. It is that which makes you another to what you could be, puts you in the middle of another. So it opens you up to a different way to understand who and what you are and how you can become, and allows consciousness to explore it. As a wider point, you will also notice that within all of what I do within Spinoza, but actually what I'm most interested in doing in philosophy is that Whitehead project. It is how you redescribe reality, keeping it scientifically reasonable, never stepping then beyond the limits of how we model the world in the post-Einstein and quantum way, but how that then allows you to reform how you understand what it is to be you. That thing that perceives the world, that is part of it, and it has a conception for it. How you understand that, which is, of course, one of those deep philosophical questions. But how you understand it, not as it is just straightforwardly given, but as a way of reforging what you are. I'm whiffling because I'm trying to get round to pointing out that the entire project of Spinoza, the reforming of the idea of reality, not as a world of things, or even really a substance. He only uses substance very early on in ethics to get him where he wants to go, and then occasionally. No, it's the idea of a God who contains infinite things in infinite ways. The God, then, of the absolute middle. The God whose reality lies not in being one thing, but in being all things. Who lies not in the things that are hooked up, but in the hooking up, in the forces, not of the things that feels the forces. In the movements, not in the things that are moved. It is the God of... To say it is the God of change is foolish, because it is not the God of change. It is the God of the middle. The fact that you can never quite finish anything, that reality is of not finishing things. And what common notions then exist is ways you can navigate into that middle, into that reality that is not restrictable to particular things. That once you start it, you can't stop it, because it creates endless new ideas, new experiments, new ways to be, new ways to think, new ways to experiment. An endless open story then. An account that cannot be quite restricted or contained. And that is what a common notion does. It allows one's mind to become other than the simple individual that one is locked within, and moves one to the very gates of infinity, as one understands at last God, revealed not as a person, a man in a hat, barely as a force sweeping the universe along. A force is far too, localized, particularized, and anyway, it begs the question: a force is just a common notion. Rather, it is the fact that we are all caught up, that we are all interlinked one with the other and unable to ever distinguish ourselves. That is the God of common notions, the God that makes that the reality, and not the world we individually perceive as we exist. So, for me, Spinoza represents a wonderful example in other ways I could understand what I was, what I could dream to be. Ways that are then endlessly practical, endlessly useful. I'm forever, when faced with a conundrum, trying to resolve somebody, trying to think why they've worked the way they have done, and separate truth from lies. I'm forever rummaging around in common notions, trying to understand particular occasions within a wider case example. And it doesn't always work, but it creates, but it is always useful. It always opens the mind in a different direction from the way you thought you were going to go, from the way everybody else goes. Everybody else goes when they're being harried by contrary affects, the normal way that we do it. That allows you to be different, think differently. But I don't want to sound too much like a self-help guru. One must find common notions for oneself, and you either understand what it means to pull them out from your mind or you don't. But if you are still puzzled, think always, as Spinoza starts off with, of physics and what it means to talk of forces. Not the glitzy world of quantum mechanics, which philosophy tries to get itself lost within, but just the beefy world of Newton and of how radical it was. Because there you'll see common notions that they're easiest to understand, and then think what that means for you and your emotions. And between the two, the idea is relatively clear and easy to grasp and to move on. So that's me done on common notions, I think. I'll no doubt come back to them in some form or other. We're going to go back to dystopia tomorrow. It's my wife's birthday tomorrow, so I might have a break. It might be the next day. But we're going to go back to the gates of dystopia and go through what it means to live as a citizen of a society that is falling down. Having thought and gone up to the cheeks of God, it's time to go down to the dross again.